Tycoon returns with mistress, finds ex-wife with triplets whispering, "They call you daddy. Welcome back, CEO Han." The flight attendant says with that polished warmth people save for men who can buy airports. He answers with a nod that looks like gratitude but feels like armor. In the jetway, Seo Yun slides her hand around his arm. Her perfume is elegant, rehearsed, just like everything else this morning. "You look like victory," she whispers. "Let them see it." "Victory doesn't need witnesses," he says, but the lie tastes metallic. His eyes find the press pen through the glass. Microphones like spears, camera flashes already popping. He straightens, checks his tie once, twice. The habit is old. The tremor in his hand is newer. The sliding doors part. Noise surges. "CEO Han, what's the strategy behind the domestic acquisition? Is the clinic network a philanthropic pivot or a tax strategy? How do you respond to rumors you're returning to settle old scores?" A voice he can't place shoots the question he's been waiting for and dreading. "Do you anticipate any personal complications?" His PR chief, a compact man with a perfect part in his hair, leans in. "Keep it to the lines we practiced." Jae-hyun looks beyond the scrum, beyond the lights, to the outline of mountains holding the city like a bowl. He remembers being a boy and thinking Seoul could hold him forever. He steps to the podium. "Synergy," he starts, and the word snaps like cold glass. "We see an opportunity to bring scale, innovation, and accessibility to pediatric and community health. We believe in outcomes. We believe in efficiency." He pauses, lets the silence stretch. "And no." He feels Seo Yun's nails press his sleeve, a gentle warning. He takes the warning and ignores it. "No, I don't look back." The words leave his mouth with impossible calm. His right hand, tucked near the mic stand, shakes, so slightly he thinks no one will notice. But he notices. A reporter thrusts forward. "Are you saying there's nothing in your past that could affect this deal?" "My past affects me the way weather affects mountains," he replies. "It shapes, it doesn't define. We're here to build." "Rumors say you chose this network because of a personal connection to one of the clinics." "Rumors are a currency for people who don't know how to earn trust," he says, measured, almost bored. He steps back. "We'll answer more at the briefing." In the car, the city presses close. Vendors setting up stalls, office workers in dark coats, students with backpacks heavier than secrets. Rain freckles the glass. The driver takes the river road where the Han moves like a thought too big to say out loud. Seoul smells like wet concrete and possibility. Seo Yun slides closer. Strong, controlled, almost poetic. She kisses his jaw, a punctuation mark. "But be careful with poetry. It makes people think there are feelings under the suit." "There aren't," he says, and his voice is flat enough to make her laugh. She studies him in the window's reflection. "Then why hide the hand in your pocket?" He doesn't answer. He presses his thumb into his palm until the tremor steadies. When he looks down, he sees the faint crescent of skin where a ring used to live. It's almost gone now, almost. The office waits in glass and steel. Assistants lift their heads like synchronized birds when he enters. "Briefing in 10, sir." Legal is already in the conference room. Inside, the table is long enough to seat 3 families who don't talk to each other. Slides glow on the wall. Map of target clinics, revenue models, community outreach. Jae-hyun listens with half his mind, the other half tracing the capital letters of the mission statement. Access, scale, care. Like a prayer written by accountants. Legal clears her throat. "One item before we proceed. The confidentiality provision from your divorce remains enforceable. Any probing about personal circumstances is irrelevant," he finishes. "We'll redirect." His voice has the exact temperature of ice water. "Proceed." The CO taps the next slide. "We start the site visits this afternoon. Pediatric units first, as requested." He glances at Jae-hyun, surprised. "There's an optics advantage in that." "No optics," Jae-hyun says. "Just order." He signs where they ask him to sign, initials where they ask him to initial. The pen feels heavier than it should. As he caps it, his phone buzzes with a message from Mother. Not Mom. Never Mom. Mother is a calendar alert in human form and the engine that taught him to run without stopping. She doesn't bother with greetings. Keep clean. No sentiment. Remember who you are. He types, I remember. Her reply is instant. Then act like it. He pockets the phone. We have the investor call at noon, the PR chief says. We'll lead with impact figures. People eat impact like candy. People eat what you starve them into craving, Jae-hyun murmurs. He doesn't realize he said it out loud until the PR chief laughs. A little too brightly. They break. He steps into the hallway, the world briefly quiet. Through the window, Seoul gleams in the weak sun. Every window another life he doesn't have time to live. He presses his palm to the glass as if the city were a fever he could cool with touch. His reflection stares back. Expensive, immaculate, precise. A man who would never drop a glass, never raise a voice, never cry at an airport. A man who says he doesn't look back and sometimes makes himself believe it. Coffee? Seo-yeon asks, appearing with 2 cups. Your favorite. My favorite changes, he says, taking the cup anyway. She leans against the glass beside him. They'll adore you if you show them the savior angle. Tycoon rescues clinics, invests in children. It's irresistible. He watches a child below, tugging at a parent's sleeve, mouth open in a question too urgent for walking. Children don't need saviors, he says. They need adults who don't leave. That's unexpectedly philosophical. She threads her arm through his. Where is this softness coming from? It isn't softness, he says. It's logistics. She smiles, sharp, satisfied. Logistics will beat sentiment every time. He thinks of long nights when logistics looked like an empty chair at a kitchen table he barely sat at, like a text sent too late to change anything, like a pen scratching across paper while a life went brittle in the corner of his vision. He blinks and the memories retreat, skittish animals. At the noon call, he delivers the script with surgical calm. Shareholders purr. Afterward, someone jokes about naming a wing after him. Names on walls are for the dead, he says, and the room politely laughs because they do not know what else to do. The afternoon shifts. The driver pulls up to the first site visit. A modest building wedged between a bakery that smells like butter and a stationery shop with windows full of bright paper. The clinic sign is simple, paint a little faded at the edges. The door opens and closes with the careful rush of a place that tries to be both efficient and kind. This one? The CEO asks, skeptical. It's not flashy. It's clean, Jae-hyun says, studying the way a nurse ties a child's shoelace while talking to a grandmother about prescriptions. The nurse's hands are quick and gentle. He catalogs it without meaning to. Let's go. He steps over the threshold and the air changes. Antiseptic and crayons, the vigilant hum of machines, the soft chaos of small lives being measured and mended. A poster on the wall shows an inhaler technique. He remembers a night years ago when he learned it in a kitchen lit by the glow of a phone screen. Someone's tired voice explaining, slow breath, count to 10. Again. He swallows. The memory dissolves before he can hold it by the edges. CEO Han, the clinic director says, smoothing her coat. We didn't expect. Well, we did expect, of course, but not. She laughs at herself. Welcome. Thank you. His voice lands steady. I want to see the pediatric wing. We're proud of it, she says. Underfunded, but proud. Pride survives where money doesn't, he answers and then adds, because he is supposed to be warm. We aim to change the second part, not the first. They move down the corridor. A child's laughter peals from a distant room, bright as a bell. His hand starts to tremble again, this time not from fear, not exactly. He tucks it into his pocket and focuses on the floor tiles, white gray, a pattern for not getting lost. Are you cold? Seo-yeon asks softly. No, he says, and it is almost true. He squares his shoulders as they approach the double doors to the pediatric unit. He can feel the story forming around him. Tycoon returns, mistress by his side, cameras at his back, the city holding its breath. He tells himself the story will be the one he writes, not the one that tries to write him. He tells himself he doesn't look back. He reaches for the handle. His hand shakes. He keeps going. Você diz. Certo, agora tu como narrador e storyteller desenvolva a historia sem marcacos com o nome de cada tópico que for desenvolve. Me conte sobre o tópico tu com dialogo como seu faço espectador. Sempre lembrando de desenvolver com muita moco. Com muitos sentimentos de forma que a estrutura de narrativa utiliza uma linha temporal linear, de modo o espectador sentir o que o personagem está sentindo amigos. Com 6.000 characters o chat GPT diz. Penso por 27's the alarm on un. G's phone vibrates at 5:12 a.m. A soft insistence against the nightstand. She doesn't hit snooze. She never does. Up, she whispers to herself. The word a thread she pulls to lift her body into the morning. The apartment is small enough that the first step takes her from bedroom to kitchen. She ties her hair, opens the rice cooker, and the warm breath of yesterday's grains greets her like something loyal. We'll make porridge, she decides. Because you won't betray me. She smiles at her own joke and reaches for the pot. 3 tiny pairs of socks wait on the back of a chair like birds. She sets out lunchboxes. Strawberries, rolled omelet, a note in each drawn stars for Hannah, a dinosaur for Dury, a wobbly rocket for Min. She checks the asthma inhaler and spacer again even though she checked them last night. Habit is a fence she builds around fear. From the bedroom, a chorus of small voices tumbles out. Iamea, Hannah sings. The sun forgot to wake up. The sun is shy, Min declares. Dury coughs a dry little bark. I'm thirsty. I'm coming, she calls, pouring water into a cup that used to have a handle. Tiny sips, okay? They appear, hair in sleep-made crowns, pajamas mismatched, faces full of pure belief. Hannah leans against her hip and peers into the pot. Is it party soup? It's porridge, Unji says, pretend surprised. The kind that makes you run faster than buses. We don't run faster than buses, Min informs her, serious. We hold hands and look left and right and then also left again. Who taught you that? She asks. You, they chime, and the word warms a cold place in her chest. They eat at the fold-out table. What's in my box? Hannah asks for the 3rd time. Treasure, Unji says. Gold. Min's eyes widen. Better. She taps Min's nose. Cucumber slices that look like moons. Dury picks at the dinosaur sticker on his cup. Iama. Yes, love. Are we rich today? The question is not cruel. It is 4 years old and practical, the way a child measures the world. She thinks of bills on the fridge, the message from the daycare about fees, the clinic's budget spreadsheet open on her work computer, the part where the numbers pretend not to bleed. We're rich in stories, she says, and in hugs. Those are the real coins. They nod like accountants. Shoes, jackets, small backpacks shaped like animals. She kneels to zip Dury's coat and hears the thin whistle that sometimes threads his breathing. Slow, she says. In 2, 3. Out 2, 3. He follows, eyes on hers, and the whistle softens. She taught someone else this technique once, long ago, in a kitchen at night. She turns away from the thought as if it were a step she might trip on. The hallway smells of fried batter and detergent. Mrs. Choi from 2B is out early watering a stubborn fern that refuses to die. You're a general with your troops, she says. I'm a cracked teapot, Unji replies, cheerful. But I pour. At the bus stop, Hannah presses her face to Unji's coat. Why do people hurry? Because they forgot they have feet. Min answers for her, and Unji laughs, a real sound that surprises her. On the bus, the triplets stack themselves like a puzzle on a single seat. Hands, she says, and 3 little hands find her. She counts them, always counts. The city slides by, vendors lifting metal shutters, a man jogging with a dog in a sweater, a woman carrying a cake in a box held like a promise. At daycare, Miss Yoon crouches to greet them. We're painting planets today. Can I paint Jupiter? Min asks. You can paint all of them, Miss Yoon says, and then to Eun-ji softer, long shift, coordinator meeting, then clinic rounds, then charts, then more charts. She signs the clipboard. I'll be late. Again. We've got them, Miss Yoon says. They love snack time like a religion. Text me if he coughs. Eun-ji says, nodding toward Duri. I packed the spacer in his bag. You always do. Miss Yoon squeezes her arm. Go save the world, Iyama. I'll settle for not breaking it. The clinic sits between a bakery that smells like brown butter and a stationery shop with bright paper windows. The sign out front is simple, a little faded. She loves it the way people love old sweaters. Inside, the air is a blend of antiseptic and crayons. She checks the clock. She is 5 minutes early. It feels like a luxury she shouldn't flaunt. In the tiny staff room, she swaps her coat for a white jacket. Morning, Chief, Nurse Ji-won says, pouring coffee that qualifies as coffee only because it is hot and brown. Morning, Eun-ji answers. Save the good cups for the mood emergencies. The new kid with the fever is crying like an opera, Ji-won says. Might be a 2-cup aria. Eun-ji smiles and checks the board. Appointments double-stacked. One pediatrician out with a stomach bug. A shipment of nebulizer masks delayed again. The numbers are a puzzle with missing pieces. She moves magnets, reshuffles slots, writes notes for later. The coordinator meeting is a circle of tired faces. We have whispers about an acquisition, the clinic director says carefully. It's not official. By whom? Someone asks. Big name, the director says, and the room hums like a machine warming up. Does big name bring big money? Another nurse asks. Or big knives, Ji-won mutters. Eun-ji opens her folder. Whatever happens, today we have children and parents in the waiting room. We keep them first. We cut waste, not care. If a shipment is late, we borrow from the sister clinic. If someone needs to cry on break, the staff room is Switzerland. She meets eyes around the table. We take care of each other so we can take care of them. A soft ping from someone's phone shows a headline for a second before it's swiped away. Tycoon returns. Eyes Healthcare Network. The name is not visible. Her spine reacts anyway, a single electric note. She places her hands flat on the table. Back to work. The morning pours itself into her. A toddler with a rash that looks worse than it is. A grandmother convinced Google is a doctor. A quiet boy with a bruise that doesn't match the story. She kneels to his level, voice a bridge. You can tell me anything. He doesn't today. Maybe next time. She documents everything. She always does. At noon, she eats on the back steps. Kimbap she doesn't remember making. A tangerine she peels into a string of sun. Her phone buzzes with a message from the daycare. Min says Jupiter is the biggest because it eats other planets. She laughs, then sees the second message. Duri coughed during songs. Use spacer. All good now. Relief is a small animal that lives under her ribs. She feeds it again. In the afternoon, a mother arrives with a baby burning with fever and panic. He's so hot, the woman says, fingers fluttering. I know. Eun-ji answers, voice low as water. We're going to cool him down. You did the right thing coming. She demonstrates how to sponge, how to measure breaths. The mother's hands learn to steady themselves on the baby's back. You're doing well, she says. You are. Back in the corridor, Ji-won falls into step. You have that tone. What tone? The one that makes people believe in tomorrow. Ji-won lowers her voice. You okay? About the rumor. Rumors are weather, she says. We are roofs. Ji-won grins. You should put that on the wall. I'll put more hooks for winter coats. Words don't hold scarves. Near closing, someone leaves the staff TV on in the corner. Sound low, captions marching. A suit at a podium, cameras flashing. The caption reads, CEO returns. Health sector bid. The angle is familiar the way a childhood street is familiar even after years away. She reaches for the remote so quickly that it clatters. Noise, she says to no one, and clicks it off. The screen goes black. For a second, her face is reflected there, thin with carefulness. Her locker holds a folder that she never means to open and sometimes does. Tonight, she opens it. The legal paper is cold in her hands. The clause says what it has always said. Silence required, for the good of the company, for the good of the family. She traces the edge with her thumb until it stings, then tucks it away again like a thorn under a pillow. "You don't get to scare me," she tells the steel door. "Not today." On her way out, she signs 3 forms, emails 2 suppliers, and sends a note to Miss Yoon. "I'm on my way." The city is blue and orange, a bruise and a lantern. At the crosswalk, she stands with a crowd of strangers and feels, for a breath, like she's inside a lung inhaling the same air as everyone else. Calms her. Daycare releases its small flood of children. "Iyama!" 3 voices braid together and her body answers faster than her mind. Knees bending, arms wide. Hannah's paint is on her cheek like war paint. Min holds up a paper with circles. Jupiter, huge and crooked. Duri reaches for her hand without speaking, his eyes tired but bright. "How is Jupiter?" she asks. "Hungry," Min says. "It ate Saturn like noodles," Hannah adds. "Did you cough?" she asks Duri softly. "A little," he admits, "but I beat the cough dragon." "You did," she says, kissing his hair. "My hero." They ride home, the bus gentle with evening. A teenager offers his seat. She thanks him with the kind of gratitude that can break a human if they look at it too long. Dinner is rice and soup and more laughter than the ingredients suggest. Bath time is chaos, the good kind. She reads 2 stories, then half of a third because Min negotiates like a lawyer. "Iyama," Hannah whispers in the dim. "Do we have a daddy?" The question arrives like it always does, on soft feet, late at night when the day has made everyone honest. She smooths the blanket. "We have what we need," she says gently. "We have each other. Sometimes families look different. Ours looks like 4 stars making a shape no one else has." "Can I draw it tomorrow?" Min asks, already sleepy. "You can draw it as big as the sky," she says. Duri coughs once, a little sound. She sits with a hand on his back, counting his breaths until they settle into a rhythm that matches a song she can almost remember. She stays there long after the 3 of them slip into sleep, the room filled with the small noises only children make. Sighs, a dream word, the rustle of a foot against a sheet. On the balcony, the night is cool. The city hums its endless, kindless lullaby. She wraps her arms around herself and leans on the railing. Somewhere, someone is making a decision that might lift or break the pieces she holds together with both hands. She can't stop that. She can only be who she promised them she would be. Her phone buzzes with a news alert she doesn't read. She turns it face down, goes back inside, and lies on the rug between their beds. The ceiling has a crack shaped like a river. She traces it with her eyes and thinks, as she always does at the end of a day like this, let them never be a story on someone else's screen. Let them be ordinary. Let ordinary be enough. "Do you want sugar?" he asked once, 2 apartments ago, before the cups matched, before the world learned their names. It was a small kitchen with a leaky faucet that tapped out an impatient metronome. He was still just Jaehyun then, not Seo Han, not a title-wearing a person. He stood barefoot, tie undone, looking like the end of a long day and the beginning of a life. "Sugar makes it polite," she said, leaning on the counter. "We can be polite to each other." He smiled without caution, that rare thing. "To us?" he murmured, and clinked his cup against hers. They had a calendar crowded with colored dots, her shifts, his meetings, impossible dinners with his mother where the conversation was a museum of sharp objects. Still, there were mornings when the sun climbed the sink and they ate toast like it was luxury, and nights when they fell asleep with the TV whispering useless dramas and his breath against her shoulder said the truest thing he knew. Stay. The first fracture had no sound. It looked like a phone call in the lobby of the hospital, his face pressed toward a corner as if walls could hide news. He came to her with a paper folded too neatly. "What did they say?" she asked, pulling her scrubs into place with hands that could lift a fever and put it down again. His eyes tried to be windows. They turned out to be doors. "It's nothing," he said, which meant it was something. We'll talk later. Later became late, became never. When he finally spoke, his voice arrived in pieces. The tests, the count morphology, he swallowed. It doesn't matter. We're fine. You're allowed to be sad, she said, touching his jaw. I don't have time to be sad, he whispered, and then he wasn't touching her at all. The second fracture knocked. It wore pearls and certainty. She waited in a room that smelled like lilies left too long in water while Mother examined her as if she were a contract clause that refused to balance. The family, Mother began, and the word was a verdict, requires vision. Children are part of that vision. You, my dear, will not stand in the way. I am not in the way, Unji said softly. I am here. Mother tilted her head. You are small. It wasn't cruel. It was a measurement. My son carries a mountain. He needs someone who understands altitude. He needs space to breathe, Unji replied. Mother's smile did not reach her eyes. And if that breathing requires alternatives, surrogacy, discretion, loyalty, loyalty to whom? She asked. To him or to what his last name buys you? Mother's eyes, then. A brief, surprised respect that ended as quickly as it began. Careful, she advised. Sharp tongues cut their own mouths. A week later, a rumor toddled into their lives pretending to be a fact. At a charity brunch, a woman with camera-ready sympathy tilted toward Unji. You must be exhausted, she cooed. Poor thing after the situation. But at least you're free to pursue treatment now that the other matter is settled. What other matter? Unji asked, feeling the ground tilt. Oh, the woman said, delighted and horrified. I assumed you knew. The PR consultant. What's her name, Seo? Seo-yun? Bless her. She's expecting. A pause like a handshake with a knife. Of course it's all hush-hush. For now. The cup in Unji's hand didn't drop. It stayed obediently upright while her heart remembered gravity and fell. She went home, walked past the bathroom where two faint lines had appeared that morning like shy miracles, closed the bedroom door, and sat on the floor because chairs felt too proud for the news she carried. She pressed her palm to her belly. You, she whispered. The word shook. You. When he came home, he had weather in his eyes. It's not, he stopped. She said. He stopped again. Say it, Unji said. She says she's pregnant. He blurted, and flinched as if the words were objects. I haven't. It's complicated. The faucet tapped the metronome. She tasted iron. Complicated is a bad word people use when they want permission. I did not cheat, he said, and the sentence was a soldier standing at attention. This is a trap. So say that, she snapped. Say it to them. Say it to me. He dragged a hand down his face. There are audits. There are men who want me gone. There are papers. His voice thinned. My tests. If this is, people will say you. He couldn't finish. The silence finished for him. She reached for the nightstand drawer. The plastic stick seemed ridiculous in her hand. A toy, a prophecy. She set it between them. Two pale lines, nervous and stubborn. I was going to tell you with tea, she whispered, with jokes about sugar. He stared. The room reduced itself to the small white rectangle and the two of them breathing like they'd forgotten how. Something flared in his face. Hope, terror, both. And then a knock came like a cue. Legal entered their marriage in a dark suit. The man's tie was the blue of expensive skies. He placed papers on their table as if he were serving dessert. There has been a misunderstanding. For the good of the company, we require a signatory to affirm procedural responsibility for an accounting oversight in a subsidiary. Purely formal. No consequence. He slid another page across. And a non-disclosure rider. Protective. Simple. Her name was already typed in the blank space. Why mine? She asked. He smiled the way a crocodile smiles. You are closest to our Mr. Han. Closeness confers trust. And burden, she said. Only temporarily, he promised. In return, a generous settlement, a fresh start, and silence which will serve everyone. Mother arrived without footsteps. "You always said you would do anything for him," she murmured, a memory used like a scalpel. "This is anything." "He doesn't need a lamb," Unji said. "He needs a partner. He needs to survive," Mother corrected. "And survival is an ugly sport." She tapped the paper. "Sign. Spare him the spectacle. If you truly love my son, you will not drag him through mud that looks like mercy." He said nothing. That was the worst part. His silence writhed with fear and calculation. Two snakes fighting for the same mouse. Unji breathed until the room stopped trembling. She thought of the boy with the bruise who didn't speak, the toddler with the rash that looked worse than it was, the asthma technique that had steadied a man's hands in this very kitchen. She thought of two pale lines that weren't patient enough to be a secret. "Will this hurt him?" she asked the lawyer. "It will save him," Mother answered. "Will he hear me if I speak?" she asked the man she loved. He lifted his head, eyes bright and lost. "I am trying not to drown," he said. "I can't hear anything underwater." "Then breathe," she whispered. "Look at me and breathe." But he was already walking toward the paper as if it were a life raft and she the storm that necessitated it. She signed where they told her to sign. The pen felt heavier than it should. She wanted to write a different language over the words. One where love outranked last names and clauses dissolved into apologies. She initialed the box that gagged her. When she looked up, Mother's expression was almost kind. It was the kind of kindness you give a soldier you've sent into fire. "I knew you were sensible," she murmured. "You'll be compensated." "I don't want your money," Unji said. "Everyone wants money," Mother said, amused. "Some people just want to look heroic while they take it." That night she packed a bag with shirts that didn't wrinkle and a book of stories she'd loved as a child. She wrote a letter that said everything, then nothing, then everything again. She left it on the bed. In the morning, the bed was made and the letter was gone. "Where?" she asked the empty room. No one answered. They met once more, in the rain that made the streetlights blur. He stood under an awning like an apology. "Tell me it's a lie," he said, skipping greetings, skipping courtesy, arriving at hurt. "Tell me you didn't," he swallowed. "That you aren't, that you didn't move on before you moved out." "I signed your future," she said, keeping her voice low so it wouldn't break. "That's all I moved." "You're pregnant," he said, the word paper thin. "And the world thinks what it is told," she said. "And the people telling it have louder microphones than me." "Whose is it?" he demanded, the question slicing both of them open. She stepped forward until the rain was between them like a veil. She put his hand flat on her belly, not asking permission because time had run out for politeness. "I wanted to tell you with sugar," she whispered, "but your house is full of salt." His palm burned through the thin cotton. For a second, a stutter of wonder turned his face young again. Then fear swallowed it. He jerked back as if scalded. "My tests," he said. "Can fail," she replied. "People will say," he began. "Let them," she said, even though the thought made her stomach twist. "Truth can be slow, but it walks." "When?" he asked, voice hoarse. "When did you know?" "This morning," she said. "And then the lawyer came, and then your mother, and then I realized love in your world is a thing you hide to keep other things alive." He closed his eyes. "I can't lose the company." "It was never yours to begin with," she said softly. "It belongs to a name that eats its children." He flinched. "You're cruel." "I'm tired," she answered. "And brave, apparently. Brave enough to leave before you tear me to pieces with good intentions." "I never meant to." He stopped. The rain filled the pause. "I know," she said. "That's the tragedy. Not the things we mean, but the things we allow." He reached for her then, fingers trembling, but she was already stepping away. "Take care," she whispered. "Breathe." She moved into a smaller life that made bigger sense. She swallowed morning sickness in bathroom stalls between patients. She held 3 heartbeats beneath her own and learned to count differently. She bought a second-hand crib and a lamp with a quiet switch. She worked until the night before the night everything began. In the present, the refrigerator hums, steady as a promise. In the next room, 3 small breaths rise and fall. She turns on her side, the rug imprinting lines on her cheek. The rain stops. A silence arrives that feels like held breath before a confession. Her phone lights the ceiling with a square of white. She doesn't pick it up. The city turns over, finds a new position, dreams a different dream. She closes her eyes and lets the day ahead gather shape in the dark. A corridor, the smell of antiseptic and crayons. A door she will open because work is a road that does not allow detours. Somewhere else, he sleeps or stares at a ceiling with a crack that doesn't look like a river at all. Somewhere else, someone rehearses a lie they plan to call mercy. Backup will kick in. G1 says, half to the air, half to faith. They don't. The corridor exhales into darkness. A beat later, red emergency strips along the baseboards flare to life. A dim path like embers after a fire. Somewhere a child squeals, another laughs because it feels like a game, and a third starts to cry. Phones, Unji says, already pulling hers from her pocket. Torch up. Nurses, with me. Parents, stay where you are. On the other side of the double doors, a team in suits hesitates. The SOS voice, clipped and nervous. We can reschedule. A cooler voice. No, his, calm like a blade. Then closer, to someone at his side. Stay behind me. She doesn't look up. There is only the child by the fish mural, wide-eyed. The child by the chairs, trying to be brave. The cough she knows like a name. Duri? She calls gently, sweeping her light. Sweetheart. Here comes a small voice from the floor, more embarrassed than afraid. I dropped my rocket. I've got you. She kneels, hands finding familiar shoulders. In 2-3. Out 2-3. He follows. The cough loosens. A door opens somewhere behind her. The emergency strips paint everyone's ankles red. Footsteps. Too careful to be ordinary. He steps through the threshold with the certainty of a man who has never been lost in a corridor. The darkness takes the edges off him, but not the pull. His phone's flashlight throws a circle of white that slides across the wall, catches on her name tag, kisses the curve of a child's cheek, and then lands on 3 small faces clustered together under the fish mural. Everything that was theory becomes sight. Hannah stares up at him like she's watching a show only she understands. Min tilts his head, fearless. Duri presses closer to his sister and squints into the light. Ajushi, Min says solemn. Your light is too bright. Sorry. He hears himself say, lowering the beam until it's a halo around their shoes. Better. Better. Min nods, then grins. You look familiar. Hannah points, delighted with her own courage. You have our eyes. The sentence hits him in the ribs. He laughs, but it's an exhale, not a joke. Do I? Appa has eyes like that, Min adds, as if this explains the world. He watches their faces reassemble the dark into something safe. Their irises are that exact, ridiculous brown he sees in the mirror every morning and has never liked because it always looked too honest for his life. His hand, the treacherous one, begins to tremble. Behind him, Seo Yun's voice hisses from the door, rehearsed concern laced with annoyance. Jaehyun, it's not safe. We should. He doesn't move. It's fine, he says, but he is not listening to her. He is listening to a word that just entered the corridor and changed its temperature. Appa. Who's your Appa? He asks, the word quiet in his mouth, too intimate for a hallway. Hannah considers, then steps forward like a diplomat. He's invisible. She glances to Unji without using her name because small children have an innate sense for the sacred. But he brings us rice sometimes, she confesses, as if this is a secret. Yama brings rice. Duri corrects, breath steady now. Invisible Appa brings, he frowns. Dreams. Min nods. And socks. Socks. The laugh escapes him again, thinner, edged. He sounds very practical. He forgets sizes, Hannah says gravely. But we forgive him. He looks up then, finally, because his body has remembered there is someone else in the corridor whose gravity is stronger than his. Her light finds his face at the same moment his finds hers. The beam shakes between them like a bridge in wind. "Hello," he says, because there are no words for what is happening. "Hello," she answers, because there are too many. They stand in the kind of darkness that tells the truth. The children's 3 heads make a clover at his knee. The red emergency strips pull a thin line through the scene, like a heartbeat on a monitor measuring something none of them are ready to name. "Sir, we should..." The So begins again, voice distant, as if speaking through a coat. "Give us a minute," Jae-hyun replies, still not looking away from her. Seo-yun takes a step in. "You can have a minute in the car." "This is Seo-yun," he says, and the name is a door closing without a slam. Silence unspools. The hum of the building's wounded systems. The scratch of a cartoon fox on Min's backpack as his fingers fuss with it. The tiny, brave sound of Duri clearing his throat. He knows how to fill silence. He's built a life on it. But here it fills him. "Are you okay?" she asks finally, because she knows the corridor and the children and the work, and she does not know how to pretend in front of small faces. "I don't know," he says honestly, and the honesty is the first mercy he's given himself in months. Hannah tugs at his sleeve as if he were a lamppost she has decided to claim. "You shouldn't be scared," she instructs him. "The lights will come back." "When?" he asks, grateful for a question he can ask and possibly answer. "After we count to 100, Min says decisively. "Together." "We don't have time to," Seo-yun begins. 100 is fast," Hannah assures her, then whispers to Jae-hyun, conspiratorial, "We skip the 40s. "Scandalous," he murmurs. "Teach me." They count. 1, 2, 3, Min racing, Hannah proud, Duri soft, and he following, his voice stranded between man and boy. 39, Min vaults to 50 and nobody dies. At 72, the generator coughs awake somewhere in the belly of the building. The overhead lights stutter, then glow. They all blink. The world returns with too much clarity. The children squint up at him as if caught in a magic trick's reveal. Seo-yun's expression snaps back into a shape that photographs well. The Seo exhales like a man who just survived a meeting he didn't rehearse for. In the clean, revealing light, his hand looks steady. It isn't. He curls it into a pocket. "Thank you for counting with me," he says to the children. The words feel fragile, like glass he's learning to carry without breaking. "You're welcome," Hannah says, magnanimous. "You did good for a grown-up." Min leans, peer-reviewing his face. "You really have our eyes." He looks to Eunji, delighted. "Yama, he does." Eunji's mouth opens around a breath. She nods because nodding is what you do when a moment is too big to talk to. She crouches to their level. "Okay, starlings," she says softly, steadying the air. "Line up for stickers. Then we'll let the Ajushi do boring grown-up things." "Are you a prince?" Hannah asks Jae-hyun, skeptical of his suit. "No," he says, and it is the truest no he has ever spoken. "Just someone who gets lost sometimes." "We can show you the fish mural," Min offers, magnanimity renewed. "It helps." "Another time," Eunji says gently. He looks at her. "That used to be easy. Now it feels like learning to walk after forgetting how." He wants to say 100 things. "Sorry. Why didn't you?" He doesn't. The corridor has rules. There are small ears and there is a weather system of history moving in above their heads. His voice comes out smaller than his suits. "They call me." He stops, then tries again, the sentence too large to push all at once. "Do they call me?" She finishes it for him, not because she wants to hurt him, but because mercy is sometimes a clean cut. Her eyes shine without tears. "They call you Daddy," she says. A whisper meant for him and for the part of her that needed to say it out loud to believe it happened. Time tilts. He feels the floor, the world, the scaffolding he built around himself. He had imagined the sentence in a dozen versions and hated all of them. This one is soft and lands like a stone in a lake anyway. "Why?" It slips out before he can catch it. The most foolish question. He knows why in the way you know your own pulse. Because truth doesn't care about contracts. She says, voice a thread that could tie or cut. Because I couldn't lie to them without breaking something I love. He swallows. He thinks of signatures, of a pen heavier than it should be, of a woman in pearls who called herself a mountain. He thinks of 3 small bodies that fold into a single seat on a bus and count as wealth in a language he never learned. Sir, the SO says, trying to shepherd the moment into a spreadsheet. We really should, right? The word is ash in his mouth. He looks down at Min, at Hannah, at Dury, who is watching him with a seriousness that feels older than 4. Thank you for the counting lesson. Any time, Hannah says generously. You can sit by us at snack if you're scared again. He almost smiles. It isn't victory, it's oxygen. He steps back. Her light is off now. She doesn't need it. He wants to say her name, but names are long knives here. He nods instead. Take care, she says. And the words sound like they did in the rain the last time they stood within reach and couldn't afford to touch. He turns. The hallway expands to its previous proportions. Bodies close around him, legal, optics, the future arranged in bullet points. He hears Seo Yun murmur, children are manipulators. In a tone that suggests she believes it and wants him to believe it too. He walks. Behind him, 3 small voices blend into a new game. In front of him, the door to the briefing room waits like a mouth. He presses his thumb into his palm. He can feel his pulse there, wild and undeniable. APA. Power outage protocol. The COO starts. Fine, Jaehyun says, voice too even. Proceed. The PR chief slides a tablet across. We'll reframe the blackout as a resilience test. Also, about the pediatric optics, fantastic footage out there. You with the kids? Humanizing, but we have to control it. Control it how? He asks, eyes fixed on the reflection of his face in the black screen. He is trying not to see 3 small faces like a constellation he wasn't taught. By starving it, PR says smoothly. No comments, and if needed, a line about your commitment to all families, plural, non-specific. Legal clears his throat. On that note, we need pre-approved language in case anyone connects dots. Dots? He repeats, and the word tastes like chalk. Rumors travel, Legal says. They will find their own lines if we don't draw one. The confidentiality clause remains enforceable and your ex-wife is still bound by it. If any insinuations arise, we will characterize them as malicious attempts to derail the acquisition. Insinuations about what? He asks because he wants to hear someone else say it. He wants to set the word on the table and see if anyone flinches. Legal doesn't. Paternity. Silence drops, heavy as a hatch. He presses his thumb into his palm until the tremor calms. And if the insinuations are not insinuations? PR and Legal glance at each other. PR wins the blink. We recommend you don't engage the hypothetical. Humor me, he says. Legal folds his hands like a church. If you acknowledge any personal connection that could be construed as conflict, we jeopardize the deal. The sellers raise price. Competitors pounce. The press feeds. Your family calls an emergency board session. Stocks slide. Damage ripples. And if I deny? His voice is steady. He is surprised by it. Then the deal closes in 2 weeks, Legal says. We restructure. We do good work loudly. The news cycle forgets you. That is the job of a news cycle. Even if reality doesn't. Legal's smile is professional sadness. Reality is patient, Mr. Han. Can wait 30 minutes. Can wait 6 quarters. His phone vibrates. Mother. The room tilts toward the name. He swipes. You were on television. No greeting, no temperature. Her syllables are polished stone. It looked like you were in a school. A pediatric unit, he says, staring at the table so he won't go back to the corridor with his eyes. We had a power dip. I saw children near you. She does not ask. She interrogates. There are children in pediatric units, he replies, which is true and not at all the answer. I also saw her, Mother says. adding a pause as if the pronoun required disinfecting. Has she said anything? No, he says. But he stops. They what? He almost says it. The word sits on his tongue like a stone he could choose to swallow or throw. He sets it down instead. It's nothing. Keep it that way, she says. Sign nothing, admit nothing. Remember who keeps your air clean. He almost laughs because the air in the corridor was cleaner than anything he's breathed in years. We're talking about clinics, not air. We're talking about the family, she corrects. Which is to say, the company. Which is to say, your future. Choose nouns wisely. A beat. And watch the consultant. She's useful, not necessary. The line goes dead. He sets the phone down as if it might bruise. Across the hall, the clinic director gathers staff in the dimmed break room where the kettle whistles like a nervous bird. They're upstairs, she says, exhaling. The people with the polished shoes. Do polished shoes mean money? Someone asks. Polished shoes mean change, the director says. We don't yet know the adjective for it. Unji stands by the sink, hands wrapped around a mug that is more chipped than porcelain. Ji-won leans into her shoulder. You okay? I'm at work, she says, the answer she gives when honesty would unravel her. We'll keep charts moving. Parents first. Parents first. The room murmurs back because they need a creed and this one fits in their mouths. Her phone buzzes on the counter. Miss Yoon. Hannah says she met a prince at the clinic. He has her eyes. Min says the prince needed help counting. Duri says he was brave. A second later, all good here. We painted the fish mural on paper. Coming home plan as usual? Unji types, yes. Thank you. Then, after a breath, if the children mention a man, let them. Don't correct. Don't name. Let it be theirs. Of course, Miss Yoon replies. Back upstairs. PR lays out the day like a game board. We push the press brief to tomorrow. We release the community investment deck tonight. We book you for a morning show. The talking points are clean. Read them, he says, weary. PR does, and the words move like a conveyor belt. Synergy, accessibility, scale, community, hope. None of them say father. None of them say corridor. None of them say the way a small hand tugged his sleeve as if he had always been meant to stand exactly where he was. Questions? PR asks. Just one, he says, surprising himself. If I were to accept a reality that complicates this, what would it cost? Everything, legal says, without drama. At least in the short term. Ji-won finds Unji by the storage closet, where boxes of bandages stack like bricks no one wants to build with. Is this the part where I say something wise? Because I have gum and a bad joke. Both, Unji says, relief cracking her voice into something like laughter. Ji-won unwraps gum, offers half, keeps half. Bad joke first. What's the difference between a CEO and a toddler? What? One of them needs a nap and snacks before they can make good decisions. The other is a toddler. Unji laughs properly, then presses the heel of her hand to her mouth like she might spill. He looked at them, she says quietly, like he'd walked into his own house by mistake. Do you want him to look? Ji-won asks, not unkind. I want them safe, Unji answers. Everything after that is weather. Outside the break room, a donor plaque catches Jae-hyun's eye. It's plain, carved names, dates. He thinks of the question from the morning. Names on walls are for the dead, and feels how wrong he was. Sometimes names are for the living, too, a record that they stood somewhere and tried. He turns back to the glass room. The COO is ecstatic in a contained way. We can close ahead of schedule if we move now. And the pediatric wing? He asks. We expand it, the COO says, surprised he'd need to ask. It's a PR win. PR chimes in. We can schedule a photo op, children, parents, you in shirt sleeves, maybe a mural painting day. People love murals. People love not losing their doctors, he says, and they all nod because it sounds benevolent and responsible, and also like something a man who has never lost a doctor would say. His phone lights again. A message from Cheol, the only one from childhood who calls him by his name without a suffix. You okay? Saw a clip. You looked like you were holding your breath. A second message arrives before he can answer. If you need a real question, are you breathing because it's safe or because you're afraid to drown? He types both, then deletes it, then types ask me later. He doesn't hit send. He looks at the clock. 36 minutes since a child with his eyes told him how to count. He wonders what number they're at now, if they skip other decades just to see if the world allows it. The director appears at the glass door, nervous and brave. Would you like to see our budget proposals for next quarter? The COO starts to wave her away. We can handle that post-close. Let her in, Jaehyun says. The paper she lays on the table is neat even where it has been smoothed and re-smoothed by worried hands. We can do more with less in some places, she admits, but the asthma program. She glances at Eunji's name on the staffing column. We've cut everything we can without hurting children. How many inhaler kits did you distribute last quarter? He asks. 78, the director says. We needed 96. What happens when 18 kids don't get kits? They come back, she says softly. Or they don't. He nods. He feels the tremor again and doesn't hide it this time. The room takes note like a court stenographer. Subject exhibits visible emotion when confronted with numbers that sound like names. When the director leaves, the PR chief breaks the spell. We can make them whole later. What if there is no later? He asks, and Pierre blinks, baffled by the riddle. Downstairs, the triplets burst from daycare like a flock. Iyama! The word bows the air into a better shape. They chatter all the way to the bus. The fish mural, a cookie that looked like a cloud, the ajushi with familiar eyes. He counted wrong with us, Min says proud. We helped him. He needed us, Hannah adds more proud. Eunji smiles and nods and keeps breathing. Her phone buzzes with a news alert she doesn't open. She knows the shape of the words without seeing them. At home, she sets the soup to simmer and hears the tiniest thread in Duri's breathing. Spacer, she says. Dragon Slayer practice. He grins and obliges. When he exhales, the fear in her ribcage unclenches a little. She texts Miss Yoon a thank you for the painted fish. She drafts another text she will never send. He saw them. Upstairs in the glass. The room moves toward decision like a tide you can pretend you didn't predict. Legal lays out two neat paths. Deny and proceed or complicate and implode. PR translates both into headlines. The COO translates them into quarterly guidance. None of them translates them into the way a man's life turns when a 4-year-old calls him a name he has never earned and isn't ready to refuse. He stands. I need 5 minutes, he says. Alone in the conference room. The city beneath him is a circuit board glowing with other people's stories. He presses his forehead to the glass and remembers the small weight of a hand on his sleeve. Appa. The word doesn't need a question mark anymore. It doesn't even need a microphone. He thinks of mother saying survival is an ugly sport. He thinks of Eunji, rain in her hair, asking if he could hear her underwater. He thinks of the sign clause asleep like a wolf under a blanket. He thinks of a clinic proposal with numbers that might as well be faces. This is the choice. He can deny the world and keep it, or he can accept a smaller world and live inside it without choking. The door clicks. He turns, expecting PR's smile or legal's patience. Instead it's Seo Yun, eyes scanning his face like she's resetting him to factory settings. We're almost through, she says brightly. Then the rest is theater. You were born for it. I don't like theater, he says weary. She steps closer, perfect and non-negotiable. You like winning. He doesn't answer. Somewhere downtown, a bus turns, and 3 small heads tilt like birds to listen to a story about a prince who learned to count. Somewhere uptown, a woman carves space out of exhaustion and calls it dinner. He looks at his hand. It's steady. He doesn't know if that's courage or surrender. When he re-enters the room, everyone straightens. The COO is mid-sentence about closing timelines. Legal's pen is ready. PR has a headline where his face will go. He takes his seat. One clarification before we continue, he says, and his voice is a road he lays as he walks it. If personal questions arise, we will say, We don't comment on private matters. We will not disparage anyone. We will not suggest rumors. PR blinks. That's riskier than a flat denial. It's cleaner, he says. And if someone asks directly? Legal presses. He feels the room lean in. He thinks of the red emergency light along the baseboard. He thinks of counting and skipping the 40s and making it to 100 anyway. I'll answer, he says, when it's time. What answer? PR demands, teeth visible behind a smile. He lets the question hang. Outside, the city exhales. Inside, the meeting grinds forward, gears chewing on the future. He signs what needs signing. He declines what can wait. He keeps breathing. It is not a victory. It is the preface to a war he can no longer avoid. Down in the kitchen, Unji ladles soup. Hannah tells her the cloud cookie tasted like rain. Duri shows her a sticker of a rocket. Min asks if a prince can be scared and still be a prince. Yes, she answers, setting bowls on the table. The brave kind are scared first. He will come to the mural next time, Hannah declares with palace confidence. Maybe, Unji says, folding napkins. Maybe he will. She doesn't add the rest. If the truth can find its way past the men who guard doors with words. She doesn't have to. The night knows it. The city knows it. He knows it. The doors part. In the garage, Cheol waits, half leaning against a pillar, hands in pockets, disobedient tie. You look like a man who's been told a new name, he says, falling into step. Don't start, Jaehyun warns, but he doesn't mean it. Then I'll ask instead. Cheol glances sideways. What do you want? He almost says the script. Close the deal, stabilize the stock, silence the noise. The sentence pauses at his teeth. I want air, he says, surprising himself. I want to breathe without asking permission. That's not a plan. I know. They walk to the car. The driver pretends to be invisible. Cheol opens the back door and doesn't get in. You called me that night, he says quietly. The rain, the lie, the paper. You wanted someone to drag you to the surface. I went under anyway, Jaehyun says. And now, he stares at the dark split by headlight streaks. He hears a child's voice count past 40 like it's nothing. Now I want to be the kind of man who hears through water, he says. And I don't know if the man I built can survive that. Cheol's mouth softens. Wanting is the first honest work you've done in years. The phone vibrates again. Mother. He hesitates, then answers. Your 5 minutes are over, she says. Have you come to your senses? I'm at the car. I asked about sense, not location. A tiny, controlled breath. What do you want, Jaehyun? The echo of the question makes something tilt inside him. To close without blood, he says. To do right by the clinics. To not harm anyone. Not harm is a child's wish, she replies. Pick a harm you can live with. The rest is fantasy. He looks at his hand in the dark. Steady now in that frightening way calm can be when it isn't peace. What if the harm is me? He asks. If I keep pretending nothing changed today, she hears too much. Then you will learn to live with it, she says briskly. Your father did. I did. She ends the call like a judge with a gavel. In the seat, he whispers to the window, I don't want your life. At home, he doesn't go up. He sends the driver away and walks the river. The Han is a long, dark question. A couple fights softly on a bench. A jogger breathes like he's erasing something. He sits, watches a ferry drift. His phone lights the inside of his coat with Cheol's message. You're not the first son to choose between a last name and a first life. Another message follows. Choose what you want, then pay the price. Or don't choose and pay all the prices. He types, I want them safe, then deletes it. He tries again. I want the truth. He lets it send. Across the city, steam beads the kitchen window in Unji's apartment. She dips a ladle, tastes the soup, adds salt by instinct. The triplets eat like small engines, happy to be no one's headline. Iyama, Min says through a mouthful of rice. Can a prince have a job? If he wants to eat, she answers, and they giggle. Can a prince be scared? Hannah asks again, serious this time. Yes. Can he still be good? Duri's voice is a thread. She kneels to their level so truth is not taller than them. Good is what you choose when you're scared, she says. Not what you feel when you're brave. They nod like philosophers and return to soup. After bedtime, when the apartment has shrunk to the small circle of a lamp and the occasional dream noise, G1 calls. I couldn't not, she says, breathless. Are you okay? I'm a roof in the rain, Unji says, smiling so her friend will hear it. And what do you want? G1 asks, skipping tact like a stone. The question sits in the room with them. Unji leans back against the cabinet and lets it find her ribs. I want them safe, she says first, because that's the root. I want the clinic to survive this without losing its heart. I want Anat to be ashamed of the story I had to tell them. And him. She closes her eyes. She sees a man's face in the bad light of a corridor, stunned into softness. It would be easier if she could paste the old anger over it like a bandage. I want him to stop confusing fear with duty, she says. I want him to tell the truth if he can do it without burning us down. That's a lot, G1 says gently. I know. Want something for yourself that doesn't have 3 little names attached, G1 prods. One thing, she thinks. She finds it small and sharp and entirely hers. I want a morning where I don't count the breaths before I open my eyes. G1 is quiet for a beat. Put that on the wall, she says finally. I'll put more hooks for coats, Unji answers, and they both laugh because it's easier than crying. The phone buzzes again, a number she doesn't recognize. She almost lets it pass. Something like a tide moves her thumb. Hello. Silence. Then a voice she could find in a crowd with her eyes closed. It's me, he says. I know, she says. He stops. Apologies line up behind his teeth like cars at a toll. He picks none. I need to ask you something, and you can hang up if it's wrong. She sits on the floor because chairs feel too tall for this. Ask. What do you want? He says, and it's not strategy. It's raw. She exhales. Safety. Dignity. The clinic whole. The children's names kept off screens. I want that clause to stop owning my mouth. I want. She stops herself before the last bit spills. Spills anyway. I want you to do one brave thing that isn't winning. He's quiet. When he speaks again, his voice sounds like the first seconds after you surface. I want to do right, he says. For once, without angle. You can't do it alone, she says. And you can't do it if you insist the world is only a boardroom. I know. The admission is a door. Don't call me again unless it's to tell me you chose, she says softly. I won't be your raft. I know, he repeats, and hangs up before the word sorry can make both of them weaker. He stands under a streetlight, phone cooling in his hand, and says it out loud because no one is near enough to weaponize it. I want to be their father, he says. The sentence makes his knees feel briefly unreliable. I want to be her partner in telling the truth, he adds, shocking himself with the plural. He squares his shoulders like a boy lifting a heavier bag, because he refuses to ask for help. In the apartment, she sits with her back against the door, hand over her mouth, listening to the apartment breathe around her. The crack on the ceiling river writes the same path. She whispers into it, I want to be free of you, meaning the claws, the past, the woman in pearls, the voice that says survival means silence. The whisper returns to her ears as courage. He returns to the penthouse he never managed to turn into a home. The rooms are curated into silence. On a console table, a framed magazine cover stares up. His face, his legend. He turns it down. He takes off the suit jacket, loosens the tie, unbuttons his shirt like he's unsealing himself. Seo Yun arrives without asking, a glass in one hand. To progress, she says, raising it. Tomorrow we spin, and in a week this will be a paragraph on page 9. He doesn't take the glass. What do you want? He asks. She blinks, caught off guard. I want what I said I wanted the first time you interviewed me. A seat next to a man who wins. She tilts her head, studies him. Why? Are we doing therapy? We are doing inventory, he says. Of wants. She laughs once, clean and bright. Then you want the deal, she says, as if reminding him of his own reflection. And you want the world to clap for the good you pretend not to care about. She takes a sip. What else could there be? He hears in her answer every boardroom that ever taught him to choose applause over sleep. Good night, Seo Yun, he says, and the firmness is new. Don't be dramatic, she replies. You'll feel better after the morning show. I won't be doing the morning show, he says, and watches her face freeze a degree. What? I have other things to do. Like what? Her smile is all edges. He doesn't answer. He doesn't have to. For the first time, he doesn't explain his no. When she's gone, he sits at the long table that never learned how to host a mess and writes a list like a frightened child who has discovered lists can keep monsters at bay. Children safe. Clinic protected. Clause dismantled. Truth told. Apology that cost something. He stares at the last line until the letters blur. He adds one more small at the bottom. Ask for help. He stares at that one longer. Then he picks up the phone and calls Cheol again. Tomorrow, he says when his friend answers. Find me the person who can tell me how to pry open a clause that was built to keep a woman quiet. Cheol exhales, a sound like relief had a shape. Now you're speaking my language. And Cheol? Yeah. If this burns the deal, then you'll finally be a person instead of a project, Cheol says. Sleep if you can. Wanting is heavy. He doesn't sleep. He lies in the unkind dark and thinks of a bus seat where 3 children fit like puzzle pieces. He thinks of a hand on his sleeve. He thinks of a woman saying, don't call unless you choose. CEO Han, can you address the rumors of a personal connection to one of the clinics? A reporter calls, skipping courtesy, landing on hunger. He lets a beat stretch until it almost snaps. We don't comment on private matters, he says, voice smooth, almost bored. Our focus is on access and care. Anything else is noise. A second voice, braver. Are you denying paternity claims circulating online? He looks straight at the cameras, clean, unblinking. I'm denying that rumors have anything to do with the work we came here to do. It isn't yes. It isn't no. It's a door he holds half shut with his shoulder while the room tries to push. PR beams like a stage light. The COO nods with relief. Somewhere, he imagines Mother setting her teacup down with precise approval. Inside him, a quiet protests. This is not the truth. It's the scaffolding around it. He walks off, a chorus of questions slapping his back. In the elevator, PR chirps, perfect threading. You killed it. He studies his reflection in the mirrored panel until it blurs. It felt like I killed something, he says. Sentiment, PR grins. It had it coming. Upstairs, the board's conference room smells like old wood and caution. A director with silver hair steeples his fingers. The acquisition timetable? Intact. Legal answers for him. We anticipate minimal disruption. And the chatter? Another director coughs, embarrassed by the word. White noise, PR says. We'll drown it with announcements. He feels the conversation lift him like a current. He could let it carry him. He doesn't. I want the pediatric budget restored, he says, cutting across a slide midgraph. All inhaler kits funded immediately. Silence. Then the CFO. That's doable, but off script. Make a new script, he says. Start with breath. PR scribbles, miffed and thrilled. It will play well. He knows that. It isn't why he said it. When the room empties, Cheol appears in the doorway, Tai still disobedient. The lawyer I called can meet at 5, he says softly. She eats clauses for breakfast. Good, he says. Before that, I need to see her. Her who? Cheol asks, and then rolls his eyes at himself. Right? Her. Outside the clinic, afternoon rain turns the sidewalk reflective. He waits by the staff entrance because the lobby is for photographs and he can't afford any more pictures today. The door opens on the smell of disinfectant and crayons and her. She stops when she sees him, but not in surprise. In calculation. This is not the place, she says. It's the only place I'm brave right now, he says, and the admission buys him 5 seconds. G1 breezes past with a knowing glance. Storage stairs, she tosses over her shoulder. No cameras, only spiders. They climb to the landing between floors, where a tiny window gives the city in a slice. The stairwell hums faintly with the building's renewed heartbeat. He stays 1 step below her, as if hierarchy might be a kindness today. I said I wouldn't call unless I chose. He begins, breath snagging. I didn't call. I came. Her face doesn't soften, but it isn't stone. Then say it. Don't rehearse it. Are they? He stops. The question tastes wrong. He tries again. If they're mine, why? His voice breaks on the word. Shame burns up his neck. He clears it. Why did you leave? She looks at him a long time, like a doctor deciding which truth a patient can survive. You told me to, she says quietly. I never. You did, she says, not unkind. You put your silence where your body should have been. You let your mother speak in your voice. You let fear think for you. You didn't say, stay, Jaehyun. And a woman pregnant and gagged by a contract doesn't wait for echoes. The stairwell seems smaller. He swallows. I didn't know. About them. About, he gestures, useless. I tried to tell you with sugar, she says, a sad smile passing like light through water. But you had filled our house with salt by then. His hand grips the rail until the metal warms. You could have fought harder. She huffs a quiet laugh that isn't humor. I signed a clause to save the man I loved from a scandal your family set fire to themselves. You think I didn't fight? Fighting isn't always loud. He looks down at the step between them, the place where no one stands. Do you believe me? He asks, hating the smallness of it. That I didn't cheat. That I didn't know. I believe you loved me in a language that couldn't survive your house, she says. And I believe fear made you fluent in theirs. The window frames a fragment of sky that refuses to decide whether it's gray or blue. He forces his voice steady. I said today we don't comment on private matters. It sounded like a denial. It was cowardice dressed as discretion. I'm trying to work out how to be honest without burning you. You can't have fire without heat, she says. The only choice is where you point it. I want to point it at the paper that owns your mouth, he says. I found someone who can try. A breath moves through her like a tide. And the cost. The deal. The name. My mother. He meets her eyes. Maybe all of it. And what about them? Her chin tips toward the world at large, where children learn to count by skipping some decades and still believe they'll reach 100. If you light a match, can you promise they won't become a spectacle? No, he says, because this is the place for the truth that hurts more on the front end. But I can promise I won't put their names in the fire. I can promise I'll stand between them and the worst of it. She studies him. The stairwell holds its breath. You were always good at promises when they didn't cost you, she says. Show me a price. Name one, he says, and the words surprise them both. Take a test, she says instantly, and her voice trembles on the dare. Not because I need it to know, because the world is a courtroom I don't trust, and I want you to decide which witness you call, fear or science. I'll take it, he says, relief and terror wrestling. Quietly. No, she says, and her eyes flash. Not quietly. Quietly is how I got erased. You take it with a lawyer who knows how to bite. You take it with a protocol that doesn't let anyone swap files. And when the result sings, you don't bury the song under stock prices. He nods slowly, as if the motion might keep his balance. And if it doesn't sing the way I hope? It is a small question. It is an enormous one. Then you still tell the truth, she says. You still stop using conjecture as a shield. You still keep their names off screens. And you let me go without making this my shame again. He thinks of the corridor, a small hand on his sleeve. If they're not mine, I will love them smaller and quieter, he says, and it feels like ripping cloth. But I won't take anything from them. Not a single breath. Good, she whispers, because they count breath like treasure. They stand with the sentence between them like an infant you can't set down. He reaches for another question, the one that has been scratching his throat since the blackout. Do they ask about me? Sometimes, she says. They've built a man out of socks and fairy tales. He's taller than you and remembers all the sizes. A soft smile flickers. He can count to 100 without skipping the 40s. He laughs, broken and grateful. I'm working on it. Her phone buzzes. Miss Yoon. A photo of 3 paper fish, bright and clumsy, taped in a row. The caption, "We made a river." She holds it so he can see. They are happy, she says, voice steady. This isn't about making them happier. It's about not letting your story make them small. He nods. I understand. Do you? She asks, and the question is a hand on his shoulder, shaking him awake. Because this will become a war the moment your mother smells truth. She will come for me with velvet gloves. She will invite the world to think she's protecting childhood. She will use the word family like barbed wire. I'll cut it, he says. You can't cut it alone. Cheol will help. The lawyer will help. I need you to trust me long enough to make the first honest move. She leans back against the cool wall, closes her eyes like she's checking if she still knows the map of her own ribs. I can trust you to want the right thing, she says at last. I can't trust you yet to choose it over the thing you were built to defend. I will choose, he says, and it sounds like a promise he might actually keep. Then start, she says, with what you say next in a room that rewards you for being vague. He pulls in a breath that feels earned. I'll ask for the test. I'll put it on paper. I'll demand chain of custody and witnesses. I'll say I don't comment on private matters. And then I'll make a private matter unignorable by turning it into a legal one. That's not romance, she says. It's scaffolding, he answers. So the truth can climb. Footsteps echo from down the stairwell. Ji-won's voice. If you two are building a new wing in there, please at least order us pizza. Eunji bites a smile she doesn't owe him. Go, she says, before someone takes a picture of us breathing in the same square meter. He doesn't touch her. He wants to. He settles for the rail, for the step, for the window slice of sky. They called me. He can say it now. It doesn't break him. They called me Daddy. She nods, and a single tear escapes because sometimes the body insists on its own truth. They did. What do I do with that? He asks, voice raw. You live up to it, she says simply, or you leave it alone. Those are the only two honest choices. He descends one step, two backward, not wanting to turn his back yet. Thank you, he says, and the words feel too small. Don't thank me, she says. Keep the promise where I can see it. He leaves the way he came, through the door that smells like disinfectant and crayons. Outside, the rain is softer, like the city is practicing mercy. He calls Cheol. 5 o'clock, he says. Tell the lawyer we don't want clever. We want clean. Copy that, Cheol replies. You sound different. I'm tired of counting without the 40s, he says. I want to learn the whole way. He pockets the phone. The lobby TV plays a news segment without sound. His face moves in a box in the corner while anchors pretend to know him. He watches his own mouth form the sentence. We don't comment on private matters. He thinks of a stairwell where the private matter became a map. Back at headquarters, PR has the morning show binder waiting on his desk, bright tabs like candy. He closes it. Cancel, he says. Excuse me? PR blinks. Cancel, he repeats. We're done feeding strangers a story with no protein. What are you doing instead? PR asks, suspicious, almost scared. He looks at the clock, asking a question under oath. The room freezes. Somewhere outside, traffic swells and ebbs. Somewhere else, Cheol is already at the curb, waving him into a taxi instead of the company car. Optics, he explains. Also my superstition. He rattles an address to the driver. Park Hyrin. She's a scalpel with a bar license. Her office is narrow and bright, shelves like ribs. She doesn't stand when they enter. She gestures to 2 chairs as if she's dealing cards. You're the man who wants to pick a fight with a contract, she says. Good. I get bored. I want a DNA test with chain of custody and a protective order, he says. No tricks, no swaps. She studies him, eyes quick, amused, and kind in the way a surgeon is kind. You also want to get out alive. I want them safe, he says. I can survive the rest. Then listen, she says. Voluntary tests are simple, but your ex-wife's confidentiality clause complicates. If she even breathes near this, your family will accuse her of breach. They'll slap her with an injunction and sanctimony. Not her, he says. Me. Park nods once. We petition for a court-ordered test initiated by you, with a guardian ad litem for the children and a protective order sealing their identities. We frame it as your right to know. No allegations, no defamation, just facts. It's less combustible. And my mother? He asks, already hearing the click of her heels in his head. She'll file a temporary restraining order claiming reputational and market harm. Park smiles thinly. It'll be dramatic. We'll be ready. The papers go down thick on the desk. Petition drafts, affidavits, a script for courage. You'll sign a sworn statement, Park says. If the test is positive, you accept all obligations, financial, legal, human. Courts like sincerity that costs. Good, he says, taking the pen. The weight of it feels honest for once. They're not halfway through the affidavit when the door opens on two men in suits that look like they slept on diamonds. Representing Han Holdings, the taller one announces, card extended like a badge. We're here to serve notice. Park doesn't stand. You can serve the air. I won't catch it. The man plants a folder anyway. Temporary restraining order. Any paternity-related testing or statements constitute irreparable harm to shareholders, to ongoing negotiations, and to the privacy of unrelated parties. It's in no one's interest. In no one's, Park echoes. How charming. The shorter man's smile is almost sympathetic. There are better ways to handle grief, Mr. Han. Get out, Park says pleasantly, before I decide your shoes are discoverable. They leave with the posture of men accustomed to polite victories. Park flips the folder open with one finger. They filed fast, she says. They anticipated you. Let's anticipate back. His phone vibrates. Mother. He lets it ring out. It buzzes again. Answer. He texts, I'm with counsel. Her reply is immediate. You are with your family. Remember the difference. He pockets the phone like a threat and signs the affidavit. Park witnesses, stamps, stacks. We'll file now, she says, already moving, and we'll request an emergency hearing to dissolve their TRO. You'll need to speak. In court. In your own voice, she says. Try it on. At the clinic, the day has the kind of brightness that makes people squint. The director finds Eun-ji in the chart room, a thin white sheet trembling in her hand. This came to me, she says, as if apologizing for the mailman. From their lawyers. It's sharp. The letter is silk and threat. Any discussion of paternity, public or private, will be considered breach. Employment relationships may be reevaluated. The well-being of vulnerable minors requires discretion. Eun-ji breathes around the tightness. Of course they've discovered concern for minors, she says softly. At least they found the right noun. Do you need to go home? The director asks. I need to be here, she says. If they take this too, I want to know what it felt like to hold it the whole day. G1 slides in, reads the lines, swears like a prayer. They throw blankets and call it warmth, she mutters. You're not alone. Up the river in a courthouse where the hallways. Try to teach people how to wait. Park moves like a woman who knows corridors that matter more. Emergency motion, she tells the clerk. Protective order request. Petitioner present and willing to speak. The judge is younger than he expected, with tired eyes that look like they've seen 1,000 versions of rich people's emergencies. Counsel, she says, why am I in emergency today? Park gestures neatly, because a father seeks truth and a corporation seeks quiet. The children are the only ones entitled to calm, and we propose a protective order to guarantee it. Han Holdings lead counsel stands, hair perfect, tone reasonable like a sedative. Your Honor, this is corporate hostage-taking. There are markets in motion, an acquisition near close, and unsubstantiated claims that threaten to harm thousands of employees. We request a 30-day pause for any testing, during which time the parties can resolve matters privately. If privately means silently, Park murmurs, not quite under her breath. The judge glances at him. Mr. Han, you're present? He stands. He's practiced boardrooms, donor dinners, negotiations where he purchased problems and resold them as vision. This is not that room. His voice is smaller and truer. I am. What do you want? The judge asks, and the simplicity of it makes him feel briefly, dangerously human. To do this right, he says, for once, I want a court-ordered test with strict chain of custody, a guardian for the children, and an order sealing their identities. I want to carry my own consequences, not outsource them to a woman I already asked too much of. The other counsel steps in smooth. The alleged mother is bound by a non-disclosure. The alleged mother? Park repeats, smiling without joy. Shall we pretend we don't know her name? That's a cruelty, not a courtesy. The judge lifts a hand. Ms. Park, Mr. Han. She looks at him again. And if the test is negative? I'll say so, he answers. And I'll protect them anyway. My family has reach. I won't let that reach become a hand over a mouth. Something in the judge's face changes. Only a little, like a curtain stirred by air. She turns to the other table. The children's welfare outweighs market optics, she says mildly. And gagging potential evidence with stock concerns is not a good look in my courtroom. Your Honor, the man tries again. The petitioner can accomplish his aims privately. He tried, Park says. That's why we're here. The judge thinks pen tapping. Partial grant, she says at last. Court-ordered genetic testing within 10 days under seal. Guardian ad litem appointed. Protective order regarding the children and the mother. Violations will meet contempt. No public comment beyond acknowledging the process. Counsel will draft language in the next hour. She pauses. Any retaliatory employment action against the mother or her employer, while this order stands, will be considered interference with the administration of justice. I hope we understand each other. For the first time all day, he exhales like a man who hasn't forgotten how. Park squeezes his elbow once, professional and human. You just bought yourself oxygen, she says. Now don't waste it. His phone buzzes so violently it feels sentient. He steps into the hall to answer. Mother does not waste words. You stood in a courtroom, she says, not asking. Yes, in public. Under seal, he says. To protect. Don't you dare claim a moral high ground you had to be led to, she snaps. The control cracks. The anger shines. You have 2 weeks until close. You will not sabotage your father's life's work to play hero in a melodrama. I'm not playing, he says. And it's not a melodrama. It's my life. It is our name, she corrects, each word a nail. This is your last warning, Jaehyun. Choose us and we carry you. Choose her and you carry yourself. You are not strong enough to lift that alone. He closes his eyes. Maybe not, he says. But I'm done asking you to lift what should be mine. She hangs up without goodbye. Outside, the sky makes up its mind and rains properly. He sends a single line to Eunji, court-ordered protection. Test under seal. No one touches your job. 3 dots, then, thank you. I'm at work. I'll keep breathing. He wants to write more. He doesn't. He lets the quiet be a room where both of them can sit without knocking over the furniture. Back at the clinic, an email resurfaces under the director's cursor. A routine review from a foundation with ties to Han Holdings, requesting staffing rosters and conduct considerations. The director looks at Eunji, eyes hot. Shall I tell them where to file their routine? Tell them we're closed for routine today, Eunji says calmly. We have patience. Ji-won snorts. Administration of justice, she says, tasting the phrase. I like that, Judge. By evening, Park has the orders drafted, the signatures collected, the schedule set. Next, we prepare for their flank. she says. They will not attack you in court. They'll attack her in whispers. I'll stand there first, he says. You'll need to do more than stand, she replies. You'll need to talk. Cleanly. No theater. He nods. In the taxi back, the city's lights smear on the windows. His phone shows a photo Cheol forward from Miss Yoon. 3 paper fish taped above a low shelf. A handwritten label in wobbly letters. Our river. His chest tightens in that unfamiliar, alarming way that isn't panic. It is wonder with teeth. At his door, Seo Yun is waiting, umbrella like a weapon. What did you do? She asks, voice low, too calm. Filed, he says. With your mother's blessing? She says, already knowing. With a judge's, he answers. Her smile is glass. You think you're noble. You're naive. When they come for her, and they will, you won't be able to hide her under paperwork. I won't hide her, he says. I'll shield her. You're not a shield, she says, stepping close enough for the rain to make their sleeves stick. You're a headline with legs. He looks past her at the river the rain is drawing on the street. I'm trying to learn another language, he says. One that doesn't need exclamation points. She laughs one hard note. Good luck, she says, and leaves him to the wet and his choice. He stands there long enough to be soaked through. Then he goes inside, takes off his coat like a skin that doesn't fit, and sits down to write 3 sentences for a future he can't script. A note to the board insisting on the protective order, a directive to fund the asthma kits immediately, and a message he will send to no one yet, a practice of the truth in his own mouth. Rumors of infidelity before separation. No names, just enough detail for anyone with a map and malice. Park called on the second ring. They're clever, she said, already moving. Not clever enough. I'll file for an expansion of the protective order to include descriptive identifiers. Meanwhile, do not engage online. Silence is frustrating, but documents are louder in court. He closed his laptop like a wound. What about her? I'm sending the clinic a letter. Anyone harassing staff will be folded into our definition of interference with justice. Paper shields aren't romantic, Mr. Han, but they block knives. At the clinic, romance had never been part of the job description. The parent chat pinged in a staccato burst. Is it true? Are our kids safe from scandal? I heard she used to, don't bring that here. Screenshots? Miss Yoon messaged privately, we're a fortress. I'll walk them out the back. Breathe. Unji read the thread twice, not to memorize insults but to measure the shape of the fear behind them. She slipped her phone in a drawer and kept going. Meds checked, form signed. A toddler's fever coaxed down with patience and cool cloths. The letter arrived from Han Holdings at noon. More silk, more threat. And she filed it under Wolf in wallpaper and went back to dosing hope in measured teaspoons. By pickup, the parking lot had acquired 2 unmarked cars. A woman with a camera disguised as a tote, and a roomer in a blazer. Miss Yoon shut the front gate and rerouted release through the back corridor. You'd think we were smuggling treasure, she muttered. We are, Unji said. They almost made it. At the corner, a cluster of parents pretended to discuss snack policy. One of them, hair perfect, voice sharp with borrowed outrage, stepped into the sidewalk center. Excuse me, she said loudly. As parents, we deserve transparency. You brought scandal to our children's door. Hannah tightened her grip on the paper fish she'd been carrying all day. Min leaned forward, ready to argue on geometry if necessary. Duri coughed once, small and dry. We don't discuss adult matters where children can hear, Unji replied, keeping her voice soft. Please move. The woman didn't. A phone lifted. The little red light on the back of it glowed like a lie. Is it true you trapped him? That you lied about paternity? We're just asking questions. Unji felt the old nausea, the kind that starts in the knees because the ground has decided not to be loyal. You are not asking. You are accusing, she said. And you are doing it in front of my children. Duri coughed again, longer. The whistle threaded the sound. Iyama, he whispered, embarrassed. Dragon. Okay, she said instantly, crouching. We know how. In 2-3. Out 2-3. You remember. The phone leaned closer. A voice snipped the air. "Look, she's performing." A car pulled up fast enough to make the cluster flinch. It stopped at the curb as if summoned by a better version of the story. He stepped out without a coat, rain flecking his hair. Not the company car, a taxi. Not the entourage, just Cheol behind him, face set to try me. The cluster inhaled. The camera rose an inch higher. He didn't look at them. "Duree," he said, kneeling opposite her, hands already assembling spacer, inhaler, calm. The old lesson in his body like a muscle memory he could still trust. "Hey, hero, Dragon Slayer time." Duree's eyes flicked to his, uncertain for a heartbeat. He nodded, small and brave, and sealed his mouth around the spacer. "In 2-3, Jaehyun murmured, matching Eunji's count. "Out 2-3. There you go." On the third cycle, the whistle gentled. On the fifth, it disappeared. He smiled, and it wasn't for the cluster or the phone. "You did that," he said softly. "You beat it." "Appa?" Hannah whispered before she could stop herself. The words slipping loose like a secret that wanted daylight. The camera pounced. He didn't flinch. "We don't film children," he said to the phone with the same steadiness he'd used with a terrified toddler and a trembling board. "Put it down." "Public figure," the woman said, chin high. "Public interest." "Protective order," Cheol countered, showing a copy on his screen like a badge. "And the judge's language includes retaliatory actions in educational settings. Would you like to see your name in the transcript?" A beat. The phone lowered. The cluster melted with the peculiar speed of people who enjoy principle only until it has a price. Eunji held the spacer and her composure. She could feel the tremor in her own hands and willed them into stillness. "Thank you," she said without looking at him. He nodded once. "We'll walk you." "We don't need escort," she answered. "I know," he said. "Walk with us anyway." They moved as a small, strange parade. 3 children, 2 adults who had once been another kind of we, and Cheol, whose job today was to make the world wider where it tried to narrow. At the corner, a sedan idled. The window lowered like a stage curtain. Seo-yun's smile was kind for the camera that wasn't there. "Mr. Han," she called, soft and clear. "Your evening briefing later," he said, not breaking stride. Her eyes slid to Eunji, appreciative in the way a collector appraises a rival's piece. "Ms. Kong," she said brightly, as if they were old.